as you know, on the improv side of the world, you have to be listening to be able to respond appropriately.
Yes.
But you can't be always just thinking about what you're going to say next. You got to listen long enough to know what you really then need to do.
There was always this rule that if you have even an inkling of a thought of, oh, this is going to be funny, you're already wrong. You're already thinking about it too much. Stay away from that, oh, I have a funny idea, because you've already missed something that's being given to you as a gift.
Yep.
You're in your head thinking about what it is you're going to say and how funny it might be.
So I'm glad we took like 5-10 minutes to get our levels right, because I know you.
Yeah.
And when you get excited,
you're going to ask me something that gets me jazzed up.
Volume goes up. People might not know you, but Eli Green, owner of Stumblebum Beer Company, actually located right here in the Detroit area.
So in Troy,
Michigan. So
my hometown.
Congratulations on making it through the first how many years now?
Oh, we are going on 2 years.
Going on 2.
Coming up quickly on 2 years.
Perfect. It's only 1 year older than your new little baby.
Yes.
Who's about to be a year?
He'll be a year this week on the 24th.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. Doing backflips by next week.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, you've got a really interesting story arc. I'm going to break this into, since you've got an acting background, I'm going to call these acts today.
Okay.
So usually I kind of hit like 6 segments when we're walking through an episode. So I was doing my prep and thinking, we need to call these acts, because we've had a couple of guys like you on here who are former improv guys. And so it's starting to become a theme here.
Improv is becoming more popular, not even in terms of people trying to do it, as a step on their career or make it a big part of their career. But I've seen that it does help in like regular working environments as team building exercises to, have an instructor come in and give you like a little crash course in the basics and play a couple of short form games. Even though these aren't people who necessarily want to pursue it, it does help you have interactions with people in the moment.
Yeah. It's funny. One of my coaches told me that even me just doing a podcast is a way for me to strengthen my listening chops.
Yes.
Right. And so, as you know, on the improv side of the world, you have to be listening to be able to respond appropriately.
Yes.
But you can't be always just thinking about what you're going to say next. You got to listen long enough to know what you really then need to do.
There was always, when I was doing it in college, there was always this rule that if you have even an inkling of a thought of, oh, this is going to be funny, you're already wrong. You're already thinking about it too much. Stay away from that, oh, I have a funny idea, because you've already missed something that's being given to you as a gift.
Yep.
You're in your head thinking about what it is you're going to say and how funny it might be.
Okay. Pull out that thread of the gift. So is that something that when you're training for improv that they tell you, like think of the other person's thoughts as a gift?
Yes. And not even just in improv, in acting in general, what your scene partner brings to the table is part of what is going on for you. You take it back to basics of acting. You have a motive. There's something that you want that you don't have. And getting that something is the only reason you speak. What gets in your way is the person in front of you who either has a motive that's completely opposite or unrelated, or so it's, what your scene partner is giving to you can inform how you use your motive, your tactics to get what you want. But if you cut that out, then there's no tension or drama or comedy to be had.
Okay. And the words like yes and, right? That's kind of part of the other mentality of improv as well.
Yes. And and I would say that it's like any other creative or artistic endeavor. The rules you learn when you're learning to do it aren't actually rules. think about like music or even jazz, that you have to learn your scales. You have to know these rules to be good. But when you get to a certain level, you realize, oh, the rules can be bent and broken and still create something that is worthwhile.
Like I can use my screwdriver as a hammer or as a pry bar, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that sort of thing. I think for improv, you think about like short form improv. I think most people have heard of Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Sure.
You're playing short games. Saying no doesn't really work in that because you're trying to get to the end quickly. But I had some experience in college with long form improv where it's more slice of life. You're actually exploring relationships, deep relationships between two characters. And sometimes in life, people say no. That can be a source of conflict. So when you're doing long form and you're more interested about like getting deeper into a relationship between two characters, sometimes it's okay to say no, because in this moment when you're negotiating, maybe I'm stubborn and I dug my heels in and I said, no, I don't want to do that. That's a human conversation that can be navigated. But when you only have a minute and you're just trying to find some humor and adhere to the rules of whatever game you're playing, denying anything that comes on board is a waste of time.
Right.
You've killed 10 seconds of your 60 seconds.
Got it. So, obviously we've exposed a little bit of some of your history here, right?
Yes.
A little bit of improv. Everybody knows that you're running a beer company now. Give me kind of as a way to start here, give me a little bit of a, tell me about Eli Green that's not sitting on a resume.
Oh, I have, I've just kind of felt that through my adult life, I've found success in not focusing too hard on what it is that I'm looking for. A lot in that improv is like, what are the opportunities in front of me? What do I feel like getting involved in? And then being able to say, this isn't really working anymore. I'm going to pivot a little bit. And I think we'll probably dig into that a little bit more in this conversation. I have a deep passion for animated TV shows. That would only be on a previous resume as an actor, but I think that what the sort of stories and characters and situations that you can do in animation, especially the shows that manage to keep it grounded and relatable to us who are not living in a cartoon, is for me like a transcendent level of connection that I don't
Are you
get.
referencing The Simpsons here?
I can reference The Simpsons are up there. I would say Futurama. There's a show called The Venture Bros that's completely outside the realm of realism, but within its universe, everybody, all of the people are people with emotions and wants and desires and regrets and all that sort of stuff. But the world they live in is completely absurd and unrelatable to us. So I think that when that's done successfully, I enjoy it more than I enjoy an hour-long drama that achieves the same thing in terms of, I recognize why this person is depressed, or I recognize why this person is elated, or I understand why these two people are in conflict, but they are people and the world they're trying to portray is the world that we live in.
Right.
When you can do that with animation, it is just, for me, one of the best things that you can do with a TV show.
I love it. So what's the Venture Bros all about? I've never heard of it.
It's a throwback to old Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Okay.
So specifically you think of like the Hardy Boys or Johnny Quest or any sort of like pulpy sort of villains and good guys, super scientists. all that sort of stuff. But the world they live in is that the good guys and the bad guys are unionized.
Okay.
And so there's all these rules governing how they interact with each other. And the main character is the now adult middle-aged son of the world's greatest super scientist.
Okay.
And he has not achieved nearly as much success as his father. And he has two sons who are pretty much carbon copies of the Hardy Boys. And they're super into this world that he is finding more and more disappointing the older he gets and fails to achieve what his father achieved. And then it's about them kind of growing up and realizing, becoming old enough to kind of have their own opinions on how messed up this whole system is.
Well, I think
and how it affects them.
This is sounding like a good takeaway. Like we should all be watching. We should all give it a shot.
I think everybody should give it a shot.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fantastic show.
So I do know that, even as I was listening to this conversation, what was coming up for me was, I know your parents, right?
Yes.
And your mom told me that you could talk to anybody about anything from the youngest age. In fact, you said some really funny things too. That got you.
I can think of a couple. Yeah. I'm wondering which example she gave
I'm not sure we should talk about any of them.
I know exactly which one.
But it's funny because your nickname at your restaurant is Mayor McCheese.
Yes.
Okay. Tell us a little.
I don't want to infringe too much on. Does Mayor McCheese still exist in the McDonald's pantheon of characters?
I have no idea.
He wasn't he? No, but that was something.
Well, if you get in trouble for
the brewer
trade copyright infringement,
Mayor McCheese.
Okay.
Because part of my passion is pairings of beer and cheese.
Got it.
And we can dig into that obsession a little bit more later on, but I'm also very good at going and talking to the customers. I think any place I've been where you can look around and you can see that the owner is working, supporting the staff, but also taking the time to connect to the customers and make sure, they're having a great time. I think that's important. And I brought that into how I operate at Stumblebum. And so the brewer started calling me Mayor McCheese because I have the obsession with cheese and I'm the mayor of the town that I've built.
Great. So let's talk about Stumblebum a little bit. So the tap room is in Troy. And well, tell us a little bit about it so that people understand this whole beer and cheese phenomenon. And we'll talk about some of the things you guys are doing right now.
I was introduced to this idea of beer and cheese, which I've come to find out isn't a radical idea. Mm-hmm. They've been doing this sort of thing in Germany for centuries.
They both cause gas.
Yeah,
right?
They do.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sort of aware of the sort of food-centric culture behind it. And that the people who know good beer and know good cheese have known for a while that it's a magical pairing. Now, if I were to say wine and cheese, everyone would immediately know what you're talking about. I think it's something that's in the lexicon of these things go together.
Sure.
When the reality is that, and I've spoken with sommeliers who know that there's nothing wrong with wine and cheese, but there are far better things to pair your wine with than cheese. A good piece of fish, some steak, a nice salad, all these different flavors that do go with wine and elevate each other. Beer and cheese is a magical combination, and they do work together and elevate each other in a way that wine and cheese don't. And that was something I was introduced to when I was living in New York. I went to the Museum of Food and Drink, which, as I say it out loud, seems like the sort of thing you would find in New York. Mm-hmm. And it was a lecture on beer and cheese hosted by Garrett Oliver, who is the head brewer of Brooklyn Brewery. There was a cheesemonger he invited in along with a master sommelier. And it was an evening of...
Cheesemonger is a real word?
It is a real word.
Okay.
It's just, and I think that really just means someone who sells cheese.
Okay.
There are certifications you can get that, legitimize your ability to sell cheeses. But I think cheesemonger, rather than a title, just means you're someone who sells cheese. And so there were a bunch of really fancy cheeses from all over the world. There were a bunch of different beers from the cellar inside Brooklyn Brewery. So these were either beers that never got officially released or beers that were at one time released, but they held a couple bottles in the cellar for aging and other reasons that I'm not entirely clear on. But he brought out a bunch of bottles that you weren't going to find anywhere. And they had paired those beers with the cheese. So it was talking about the elements of beer, flavor, mouthfeel, what carbonation does. Same thing with cheeses, how cheese is made, what different elements affect the finished product, all that sort of stuff. And then we would try samples of this beer and this cheese, and we would discuss our impressions. And it was a fantastic thing that, honestly, I didn't even buy a ticket. Two of my friends were supposed to go, him and his now wife, and he got pulled away for some work thing and said, "Hey, we got this extra ticket. Why don't you and Stephanie go and do this beer and cheese thing?" And we had a great time, and it started this passion of mine.
And without that, Stumblebum may have never been. I stumbled into the thing that would put me on the path that I'm on today. So now, right now, the tap room, that you have here in Troy, seats up to 100 people.
Yeah, just around 100.
Just around 100. Yeah. Okay. So what's been going on there lately?
What's going on there lately is we are really moving into being an event space. And not just private events. You know, we've done baby showers. We're planning a bridal shower. We've had a 40th birthday party, office happy hours, things like that, but also community events that are open to the public. Trivia nights that are hosted by the local public library. We have a number of artists in the area that like to do, come learn to paint. Come learn to make custom prints that you can then take home and you can stamp on an old pair of jeans, or, you can make your own wrapping paper at the holidays. So things like that, where people are teaching a skill to other people. Nights where we invite you to bring in vinyl records from your collection, and we'll have someone behind the bar spinning vinyl. Just ways for the community to connect with each other, for teams in an office to come in and blow off some steam, have a little bit more fun in a social setting rather than a work setting, all those things. I think that's really going to be part of what makes our bread and butter throughout this year and into the future, is going to be really positioning ourselves as a meeting space.
Got it. I think I've mentioned to you in the past, I know other people have watched this, have heard me repeat the line that Paul Glantz always says is, deliver value in excess of what you charge.
Yes. Essentially.
And so, like, I know I don't drink anymore, but I have had your beers when I did consume alcohol. Yeah. Maybe you can make me a nice NA. But that the $6 or $8 that your beer costs, even just that on your lips, is something I'd pay more than that.
I believe that our beer does speak for itself.
It does.
One thing I figured out pretty quickly is where the industry is right now and where the market is right now. Having really good beer isn't enough anymore. Right. So hence, involvement with the community, really positioning ourselves as a meeting space. It's really important to me that we're not just a place to come and have some good cheese, have some good French fries, have a good beer. We need to find a way to be of value to the community, both inside and outside of our tap room.
Sure. Our friend Scott Schonenberger, who runs and owns Blue Water Technology Group, Scott does a talk too. It's called "If Not an Experience, Then What?"
Yeah,
and he's in the process of writing a book as well. And really, it talks about how experiential interactions, are really what make the most sense. And as you're talking to me about this and telling me, whether it's a baby shower or a business event or whatever, at the end of the day, I don't know what somebody's spending. What's a typical budget on a baby shower there? Just from the restaurant, a few $1,000 maybe.
Yeah. And it depends on if it's a buyout or if they have few enough people that we can put them in the window section.
Okay, got
stanchions.
But my point is that no matter what they're spending, it's the experience that supersedes that.
It could be $1,000, $2,000. When they really get in there and we have a big buffet and, an open bar and all that. Yeah. 100 people can spend a lot of money in a bar.
Sure. Yeah. But it's really about the experience. And that's what you're trying to build there further is take upon the beer and cheese piece, the experiential piece, the make it something special. Yeah. For the people that are joining you.
And part of the Mayor McCheese thing is that it's not just, okay, we got your space, we got the food out that you wanted, you can order drinks at the bar. I'm there being Mayor McCheese, really just making sure everything's going well for everyone, not just the host of the event, but everyone's having a good time. A lot of times I get pulled into the conversations that they were having when I walked up. And so feeling less of like, oh, this guy's just here doing his job. Oh, this guy's here hosting our event, making sure, that's important to me to be connected with the customer.
I think people always find it fun too. I mean, I know I do for myself is I can catch a little bit of the enthusiasm, like maybe I'm eating that piece of cheese and I go, wow, this is really good. And then you overhear me say that and you start talking about the origin of it and the pairing of it and the this and that. And like, that's contagious to me, right? Is somebody like you who gets into these things. Cause I'm not going to get deep in, but I can enjoy it and I can respect how deep you are into it. And then that adds to my experience, in a place like yours.
Yeah. And I find that some of the things that we're doing really invite questions. And as we were discussing, like through my improv background, I have no problem jumping into that conversation. Mm-hmm. The name, people get confused. Where did that come from? Okay, I don't mind answering that question.
The Stumblebum name?
Yeah, I don't mind answering that question 100 times.
Sure.
Why beer and cheese? I definitely don't mind answering that question 100 times. So I, or even just the beer. People who love craft beer, they always like asking questions and they always have opinions. And not just me, but my staff are, I've curated a staff of people who also are very passionate about it and can meet those questions and those opinions with a discussion.
Yeah, that's fun. Let's talk about about this whole thing. So a couple of things that's coming to mind for me is you've always been kind of a where the wind takes me sort of guy, and then kind of building upon things. I mean, in fact, you started your journey, post high school. You moved to New York City.
Yes.
Right. And so then a bunch of things happened. Obviously you got exposed to beer and cheese there, but that wasn't the reason why you went there.
That is not.
So let's talk about a little bit about the history, because I do want people to know that you were an Oxium employee.
I was
at one time as well, which is pretty cool in your story. And I'm glad that we could be a waypoint, in your journey to where you are finding yourself now. But
and we'll get to that point of the story, but I might not be where I am if that part of the story didn't work out the way it had.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, like to me, this goes back to the statement that I always say is, that you're uniquely qualified to be doing exactly what you're doing right now. And I think all these little waypoints play into it for you. So yeah, talk about your backstory about, the going to New York, the voice training, the improv, all of that sort of stuff. Let's roll through some of that.
I had started acting, I would think early on in middle school. I ended up in
acting or acting out.
Both.
Okay.
I was acting long before middle school. I probably that would have been like in the drama club. Nothing serious. We weren't doing school plays or anything at that point, but it was sort of an introduction to acting. Definitely when I got to high school, by the time I had graduated, I was involved in 11 productions in some capacity, backstage, on stage, in the orchestra pit. I played baritone saxophone. I got a lot of experience in high school. And so naturally, it just felt like, okay, I'll go to college and I'll study theater. That's what I'd been doing. And never really gave it any second thought. It's just, I enjoy doing this. I can go to school for it. Let's go. I ended up at Rollins College in Florida, got my theater degree with a focus on acting and directing. Again, did pretty much every production I had an opportunity to do. Was a founding member of the Improv troupe that's still going on there to this day. And when I graduated, I got, I got a summer gig in Ohio. I came back here for a year. I got an internship at the Jewish Ensemble Theater, which sadly, I don't believe exists anymore. I think they might have shut down. And then I went back to Ohio, same gig, different summer. And then where from there was the question. And again, I was just kind of the mentality of, I've been doing this for 8-10 years, however long it had been at that point. Why would I do anything else? And so obviously LA or New York. As an adult, I realized there's more, there's more flavor, there's more nuance. You don't have to. But at the time it was like, okay, LA or New York. And at the time I wasn't really interested in doing like television and film acting. I was more a theater guy. And so New York made the most sense. And I also knew a couple people who were already there. So yeah, it was this, I'm doing this because why would I do anything else? I've been doing this for so long. That's the path I'm on. We're going to New York. People have, commented, I think a little earlier, you commented, sort of that it takes guts. I didn't view it that way.
It was just the next logical progression.
Next step. So there I was. And, I was met with, middling success at best. Doing that kind of work in a place like New York, you are surrounded with people who are 150%.
I've been hearing a lot lately about the knock. When an employee knocks on your office door and says, "Got a minute?" and you immediately know it's some sort of IT incident. But Oxium IT can help. Whether you're having a problem, need consulting, an upgrade, or a managed IT approach, they focus on preventing cyber attacks and proactive solutions that deliver results. My friend Matt Loria and everyone at Oxium are ready to help before or after you get the knock. Visit Oxium.com and let Oxium IT help you outsmart chaos.
All the time. All the time. Every day, every day, every day. And they have to navigate that while also having some sort of side gig, waiting tables or, whatever it is you find to do. But still, 150%. Everything is about that. And I found after 3 to 5 years, I didn't feel that way about it. I was having a hard time throwing myself that hard at it. And it was because it wasn't filling me with passion anymore. My wife often asks me, like now in our life, she's like, "Dude, would you ever think about getting back into it?" And I'd say, yeah, I think so. I could see myself, if I get to the point where I have that kind of free time, not while I'm, building a business, but if I get to the point where I have that free time, yeah, I could probably start from scratch, make connections in this area where it's not so everybody's like fighting and scraping and, for
you have enough of that as a business owner.
I have enough of that, but I could see myself getting back into it in a way that is less pressure. I know there's plenty of theaters around here. There's community theaters around here. There are improv troupes around here. But it's not New York City.
Sure.
Right. So, I could see myself going back down that path at some point. So I got out of it. I was waiting tables. I kind of shifted towards voiceover work because it was something I could do on my own time in my closet. I built a little, not nearly as robust as this. It was a tiny closet that I put foam board up in. I had a little desk and a microphone. I was in there. And that I did find quicker success doing. It wasn't glamorous jobs. I was reading a lot of technical data for or like technical scripts for onboarding programs. So say if Oxium ever wanted to have like send your clients an onboarding video that just kind of explains on high level what you do, how it works, but you needed someone to do the voice of that video. That would be me. And at the time I was working in data entry and eventually worked my way into IT at an ad tech company. So a lot of these words that I was seeing that were technical jargon, I recognized. I couldn't explain what they are, but I knew how to say them. Like MySQL is not MySQL. It's MySQL. I knew that. So I found some success. That company kept coming back to me, and not high paying jobs, but I do 3 a month. And okay, that's a little bit of butter on top of the bread working at that ad tech company. So great. I did a few video games. Now, not that you or your viewers would necessarily know the company, but Wadget Eye Games, they still work out of Brooklyn. Their thing is that they're called point and click adventures back in the day.
Okay.
But they're making games that feel like a game from that era, but they also have a little bit more of a modern flair to it. And they do really well doing it. The people who really like games like that, who are steeped in the indie gaming sphere, they know this company.
Gotcha.
They've actually had some really good success. And we're very proud of them. I did a couple video games for them. I do 3 different voices for 3 different small characters, and done, on to the next thing. So yeah, I had more success. And at the time I had more passion for that, but it was still kind of, this isn't a career. This is a side gig.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I was doing a 9 to 5 at an ad tech company, worked in database, eventually got into service level IT, setting up email accounts for new employees, helping people troubleshoot basic problems with their computer. So I cut my teeth in the IT world doing that sort of stuff.
And then you came here.
Then I came here.
Yep.
Yeah. I met my wife in New York. We met online, even though it turned out we lived 4 blocks away from each other on the same street.
No kidding.
We often ask, before we actually met, how many times were we sitting on the same train car?
Sure.
Right? Without having any idea who each other were.
That's wild.
Could have easily happened. And yeah, we fell in love. We decided we were going to get engaged. I was already at the end of my time in New York. I was feeling like this has run its course. I don't really have a career path that's going to eventually afford me like a New York City lifestyle. I'm not in a career path that necessitates being in New York, like fashion or finance or theater. So why am I still here paying rent on a tiny little shoebox apartment? She was sort of in the middle of her journey there. But
she needed a little more time.
She had a little more time. She's still very much in love with New York. I love New York. I just don't pine for it, the way that she sometimes does. But, we got engaged. The options were, we both kind of, if we were going to move, we wanted to be by family. So the options were Detroit or Nashville. And as it turned out, Nashville was more expensive than New York. So we were like, ooh, okay, well, Detroit it
Welcome
is.
to Detroit.
And at the time, I had already kind of had this inkling of it would be great if I could open a brewery. I'd been home brewing for maybe 6 years at that point. I might be getting the timeline screwed up, but I had been home brewing in my apartment for a couple years at that point. And so it was kind of like, oh, let's move back to Michigan. She's got a degree in library science. She can find a job. I would have to kind of figure out what the next step is for me in the meantime while we figure out this brewery thing, or if it's even possible.
Sure.
So we moved back to Michigan. I was working back in restaurants as a transitional job. It was a great job, probably the best restaurant I've ever worked at, not just in terms of...
We actually have a room named here. We have a meeting.
I walked in.
Our main one of our main conference rooms is called the Meeting House, named after that company.
Yeah, and they're fantastic. My parents were regulars there. They said, if there's a job opening there, just go in, talk to Jason, talk to Joel, just Tell them who you are.
Yeah.
And, if they have a job, they'll hear you out. If they don't have a job, then no hard feelings. But
so let me give you a little history on the meeting house, why we chose the name for the meeting house was each room here we named after restaurants or places that my wife and I liked, right?
Nice.
Or that
like
meant something to us. And so, and also that crossed over to the business side of things. And so the meeting house, there's a restaurant in Rochester, Michigan called the Meeting House. And something that's always fascinated me about that was that when we first started going there, we met a guy whose name was Joel Barron, and Joel was the bartender. We assumed Joel owned the place. Joel had autonomy to do things that an owner would do, whether it's letting you try something new or bringing you a free appetizer or introducing you to another couple or another group at the place. And then we got introduced to some other people and they had kind of the same MO. And I thought, wow, this is really interesting how this ownership mentality has trickled down from the owner, Jason, down into other people that have no equity stake in the organization. Yeah. And I thought that was really cool.
And that his employees enjoy working there enough that they take the pride in that. Take pride in the fact that, and they take it, not take advantage, but they do. You're given this sort of authority to own a problem or, hang out with a customer and find out a little bit about them. And they enjoy doing it.
Yep.
They all do it.
So that's what reminds me of that. Now, it does get us screwed up, though, from time to time because our office is located in Rochester, Michigan.
Yes.
If I invite someone to my office, on my Outlook, I'll put Oxium and then I put the Meeting House. I literally had a guy call me the other morning and said, "Hey, the Meeting House isn't open." I'm like, "Oh crap, I didn't tell him." So yeah, that's come to
I feel like when I was working in New York, I had some okay jobs and I had some bad jobs when I was waiting tables. Mm-hmm. And I always felt like it doesn't have to be like this. Like management doesn't have to be miserable. The servers don't have to be miserable. They're like, there's no accountability here. Like this can't be the way it has to be.
Yeah.
But it always seemed like no matter where I went, that's what it was. I work at the Meeting House and that was affirming my belief that it doesn't have to be this way. The managers and the owner, when they're on site, they're working. They're running food. They're talking to customers. They're making sure everyone's got what they, the servers have what they need. Everybody's there to work and make this a good experience. And that eventually would that really does, whether consciously or not, that inspires the way I operate Stumblebum.
Sure.
It doesn't have to be that way.
Well, and the funny thing is, when we think of the stumbling, right, you continue to kind of stumble into certain things. And so Joel from the Meeting House actually did some marketing work with you.
Yeah.
And that's how you stumbled into this name, I think.
Yes. I had the name picked out before we ever moved back to New York.
Got it. It was not the name. It was the premise behind it.
What he thought when he heard the name. He said, that sounds like a hobo name.
Yeah.
Like a moniker, an alias. And so when we sat down to start putting together, he did the logo design and he did some brand and storytelling work for us, picked out a color palette and fonts and all that sort of stuff. And he landed on this idea of a bindle stick, but instead of the bandana tied to it with a bunch of stuff in it, it's a hop cone tied to the end of the stick.
Got it.
It's a fantastic logo. I love it. But all of his inspiration photos, he had old medicine jars for font inspiration and old trains and things like that. And for me, coming from theater, it is about that yes and. That's a specific idea. And even when I was directing shows or being part of the production team on shows, it might not be part of the original vision. But when someone strikes gold, you have to be able to say, yes, let's send that down the field.
Right.
And that was him. He came up with that vibe and I leaned into it 150%.
So the funny thing is that you brought up when we were talking about the animation, the show, was it Venture Bros?
Yes.
Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Venture Bros?
Venture Bros.
Okay. And that's about these unionized good guys and bad guys.
Yes.
You told me a story about the Stumblebum and the hobo lifestyle.
Yes.
Right. And the trains and the union that they created. So tell that story. Tell that or inform us about that.
So I started learning a lot. I still don't know that much about trains themselves, but I started looking into sort of the eras in which hobo lifestyles were common. Because I was asked by someone early on, isn't hobo a derogatory term? And I felt like, no, it's not. But I didn't know enough to back that up. So I started reading about it.
Okay.
And I was right. It's not. It might get used now a little bit, thrown this way and that, and in a context that it doesn't apply to, but it isn't a derogatory term. This was a lifestyle in which you don't have a permanent address, either by choice or by circumstance, and you choose to travel and find work. And you never really settle down. You travel and find work. That is the lifestyle. And the only thing illegal that might have been going on would be hopping trains that you don't have a ticket on, or they're not passenger trains.
Mm-hmm.
And so the pushback from railroad companies and the government was, okay, this lifestyle is not it's not legal to do this. But what was legal, if you were unionized, you didn't have to have a permanent address. You could travel for work. And so when all these anti-vagrancy laws started in the late 1800s, and then they were reaffirmed after the Great Depression, the way they got around it was a couple industrious hobos got together and says, well, let's make a union. Let's unionize. And then we'll all be unionized. And so they created Tourist Union 63, I think is what it was called. They had a convention in Iowa in 1898. And it was at that convention that they sort of, all the unions have their bylaws and, all these sort of things that you can and cannot do if you're part of the union.
Sure.
One thing they came up with was the Hobo Code of Ethics. And what that did was laid out how we behave and what motivates us and how we live our life. Because we are going to end up in towns that might need our services or towns that don't want us around. Here is how we live and how we behave so that the towns we're in are happy to see us. And this is how we find work. This is how we relate. And so that next time a hobo comes through town, that town's not going to have a sour taste in its mouth. And the person coming after you is going to have a way to make their living. So there are rules like, make sure you're showered and, bathe yourself. When you find yourself in the jungle, help your fellow, Rule 15, which we'll circle back on, help your fellow hobos.
Okay.
Always, if you come across a hobo that's under 18, do what you can to get them to go home if they have one. This isn't a life, this is a dangerous life. Kids don't belong here. So do what you can to help them. Things like that. Always do work that no one wants. Those are going to be the jobs that the people in town are going to be appreciative that you came and did for them. So find those. Use your craft and your skills to find the jobs. Teach other hobos those crafts and skills when you're in the jungle, which is what their communities usually outside of a town so that they're not becoming a population nuisance.
Okay.
That they'd set up these camps outside town. They're called the jungles. But when you're in the jungle, behave yourself. Respect all the other hobos. Do what you can to clean yourself up. One of them is don't be a useless drunk, which I thought was funny. But even that one about protect children, that struck me as a very, that's a responsible and it's such a, anybody who hears that, any good, it's something a good person says.
Sure.
Protect the children. If they're here and they have no home, help them find one. Make sure they're not living this life. Yeah. Right.
Or if they have one, encourage them to go home.
Yeah. Encourage them to go home. This isn't a place for you. So I thought that was just an incredibly real and inspirational thing, as well as the Rule 15, help each other out. Teach your skills, help them where you can. Yeah. Because eventually you're going to be in the same position. It's kind of
like the golden rule for hobos, right? I mean,
this life is not ever up, 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 up. there are downs. You're going to be down. Make sure when you were up, you were helping people out.
Yeah. So you've taken this Rule 15 and you've applied it inside of Stumblebum.
Yes.
And in your own life as well.
It was always my belief when we were coming up with our concept and doing the construction that, you know, we should be a place, again, going back to the Hobo Code, we should be a place that the community is happy is there. And not just because it's an interesting place to go and have a good pint of beer, but because they have a reason to be here. And for us, that was, let's make sure that we're helping the community in any way that it needs our help. Fundraising, giving the library a place to have one of their programs. You know, the Rule 15 initiative, as we call it, is sort of, it says, help your fellow hobos whenever and wherever you can. That is, you know, we can do good work for the environment around us. We can do good work for the homeless population around us. We can do good work for people who need help. Nonprofits that are trying, we had a pop-up food pantry in there yesterday. There was a nonprofit called the Dre Project that needed a place to we have a bunch of, you know, non-perishables, produce, canned goods, all this stuff. We just need a place to set it up to tell people to go who need to get some food. And it was a huge success. But doing things like that, where that happened before business was open. There was no, like, you know, that wasn't, oh, people are going to come in here and buy beers. So it's great that we have this. No, this was before business hours. Come in, get the food that you need, make the connection to this nonprofit that can help you, and go walk out in a little bit better position than you were when you walked in.
Love it. Love it. So, excuse me. Personal life, when you're off the clock, I mean, we know that you have your first child.
Oh, yeah.
Arlo.
Almost Arlo Lewis Green.
Coolest name on earth.
I feel like that too. Yep.
You know, let's talk about a little bit of personal life. And one of the things that I find interesting is you're Jewish.
Yes.
You're married to a Catholic woman.
Yes.
And I went to your Catholic wedding.
Yes.
In Nashville. You know, talk about family, talk about this interfaith relationship, you know, how you respect it and keep your autonomy, and how you do all of that stuff together, because I know that Liz is very deep in her faith.
Yes.
And so, you know, that's an important thing, but it also adds a complicating potential wrinkle, you know, and how you guys navigate that. Cause I think people find that interesting. I certainly do.
And I think, again, just like, you know, I was told, you know, moving to New York takes a lot of guts. I didn't see it that way. I think it's the same attitude when it came to us dating, falling in love, getting engaged, and getting married. I found a woman that I was falling in love with, and this faith is important to her. The fact that I'm not part of the faith wasn't important to her. And so it's not, I just don't really, I want to love and support her, and that's part of her life. She doesn't need that to be part of my life. And it's as simple as that. I can support her. She feels very strongly about baptizing Arlo. I don't have any negative feelings against having a baptized child. I think that my parents, I forget what TV show they referenced, which is that one character said, well, so we're just making sure that if there's a God, he's looking out for the kid. Well, what's the problem with that? Yeah, what is the problem with that? Right? So it doesn't really factor in at all for me in terms of, I love this woman and I'm going to support her and who she is. And she's going to love and support who I am. And we can make that work. It takes all kinds, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there aren't occasionally rough spots, you know, like with the wedding, you know, having it be, you know, that was probably the only time that there was ever a little bit of a back and forth in terms of what it should be, because, well, my family is Jewish and your family's Catholic. Where's the overlap in terms of the wedding? And there were people in her life that felt very strongly that this should be a fully Catholic ceremony. Whereas Liz and I, for what it was worth for each other, would have been happy to find a middle ground between the two. So, there is occasionally those sorts of forces, challenging what we have.
Sure.
But it's not something we've ever not been able to work out. And at the end of the day, between she and I, we understand that we accept each other for who we are. And that we support each other in that. Because even being Jewish, I don't practice Judaism. I identify with the sort of cultural and historical aspects of it. And I don't so much identify with the religious aspects of it. And she accepts that of me, that I don't have any faith, for lack of a better term, in terms of religious, don't feel like I need to be going to synagogue every week or even on the high holy days. That's just not how I identify with my Judaism.
Gotcha.
And she's has no problem wrapping her head around that and accepting that for what it is.
Sure. Well, from your perspective, the reason I'm smiling is because it keeps going back to that improv, the yes, and the, your willingness and openness to, fluidity, like some level of fluidity, I guess might be a word.
Water, I think is
mind the like water. Young grasshopper.
Bruce Lee said that. Be like water.
Yeah. So I think that's interesting. The other thing that I wanted to kind of just wrap on here with you is nothing that you've said really felt like a detour, or I'll use the word stumble, like a stumbling block.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, and maybe you're glossing over it. Maybe we need to double click on it and see, it doesn't seem like you beat yourself up over I went to New York and I didn't turn into a Broadway thespian. You know what I mean? Like
we can double click on that.
Let's do it. Let's talk about that. Cause did you really flow through that, or did you go through some heartache on some of that?
I think it took me longer to accept that I didn't enjoy it enough. That, cause I was there for five years, not really putting in the sort of work that other people around me were putting in. And there was that sort of, because I went into it with the mentality of, this is what I've been doing for 15 years, I'm just going to keep doing it, that it took me a while in my head to say, no, for real, this isn't working. Just stop doing it and find another path. So, if I had gone in and in year 3 decided that versus year 6, I might have found my way into, a career path. But by the time I had decided that and really, by the time I was done with New York, I hadn't really found what that career path was going to be. I don't know that I had an interest in IT beyond the surface level stuff. I didn't really want to be a systems architect or, an admin level. That stuff never really, sparked me.
Yeah. I was going to say, do you feel like that you were always waiting for you knew that it was coming eventually? Maybe there's your faith. You did have some faith that something was coming that you knew you'd be passionate about, that you knew you'd have some real longevity with, that would be a career, be the thing that you really could sink your teeth into long term. Yeah.
And finding home, part of the great thing about finding that 9 to 5 was, I have free time. I have free time to do things, and I have no hobbies.
Right, because that's true. When you're
my hobby, what is my interest?
When you're doing the acting thing, it's the acting thing all day and then working at night.
Yeah,
so you have no free time.
And a lot of toward the end of my acting career, going on some of these auditions were tell us a little about yourself. And I came to this realization. I'm I'm supposed to have interesting things to say about myself outside of the thing we've all spent 100% of our time trying to do.
Right.
I'm an actor. I'm I like comic books and I play the ukulele, but it's not like I don't know how to answer that question. And then I had a 9 to 5. I'm like, oh, I can have interests and hobbies and be, a well-rounded individual. But what are those things going to be like? What is my hobby?
That's funny.
And, starting to get a little bit more into like the dating scene, find an actual relationship. And again, it's like you're doing this online dating thing. And it's like, how do I present that I'm an interesting person? I've had no time for hobbies or interests or travel or anything like that. I'm uninteresting. So yeah, that was the struggle, is like, really, now what on a bigger level?
Yeah.
Like, now what? I got into home brewing, and that ended up being a thing that set me on this path, but it didn't happen immediately. I was vaguely aware that making beer in your home was a thing you could do.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what a local homebrew shop was until I walked into one that I thought was a dive bar.
I didn't know what it was until you told me.
All right. Yeah. I just say, I'm thought this was a bar. I came in for a beer. There's like bags of grain. And I thought maybe it was just part of the vibe. And he's like, no, this is a homebrew shop. I'm like, it's a what?
That's wild.
That's something I can do that in my tiny apartment. Okay.
So, let's land the plane here a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk, your vision, 2 to 3 years from now. What do you think Stumblebum looks like? If everything's going right, what's the version of the rule of 15 that you hope outlives you? Let's talk about those couple of things.
Where Stumblebum is going, again, I think, really, we're all in on this vibe of like this place needs to be of more value than just a place to go and have a great beer.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope that, we can be a place that all nonprofits in the Southeast Michigan area know about. So that and it's starting to happen, that they reach out to us and say, how can we make a partnership together? And we host a fundraiser there. This and that. I would really hope 5 to 10 years from now that Rule 15 is something that other breweries are doing. Right? That this is something I've created, and that there's a brewery that wants to become a part of it. So now we're not just one brewery that wants to do good among the community under the banner of Rule 15, but we are a collective of breweries and other businesses that are doing this together.
I love that. That's a scalable legacy.
Yeah.
For you, that you can take from learning the Hobo Code, learning about the unionizing, learning about the rule that they put together.
Yeah.
Or one of the specific rules that really that hit you, and really being able to scale it. I think that's really cool.
And that, if there comes a day when I don't need to be at Stumblebum for the day-to-day stuff, that maybe what I'm doing is just making Rule 15 its own separate nonprofit effort.
I love it. Say the Rule 15 one last time.
Rule 15 is help your fellow hobos whenever and wherever you can, because you will need their help someday.
Yeah. The golden rule.
Yep.
Like I said, packaged as Rule 15.
Absolutely.
Love it. Well, thanks for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
Very interesting conversation. Certainly different than any of others that we've had, except we've had a couple of improv guys, but nobody doing what you're doing. So thanks for doing this, and
Thank you, Matt.
Appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
This episode of the BLTnT Podcast is sponsored by Auxium, business IT and cybersecurity designed to outsmart chaos. And powered by Juniper Networks. Automate your network with Juniper Networks and the Mist AI platform, the world's first AI-driven wired and wireless network.